And this is something that I started making last year. I'm not even sure where the idea came from. I'm a huge potato fan. I mean, I've never met a potato I don't like. So, but sweet potatoes are not something that I grew up with. So this is a kind of, there's a recipe called Gratin dauphinoise, which is like potatoes and possibly onions with cream. And it's one of my favorite things to eat. So this is a variation on this. It's sweet potato. And I think I probably just had a lot of sweet potatoes and a lot of apples lying around the house. And I love that sweet and savory thing. And also I've never quite understood the Thanksgiving sweet potato recipe where you add brown sugar and then you top it with marshmallows. And it just seems, a little excessive for me. So anyway, I started making this and it just became one of my favorite things. I became slightly obsessed with it. That being said, haven't made it since last year. So I'm kind of reminding myself of what the technique is. So this is one I've just started about 45 minutes ago. And I discovered that my instructions actually were more correct than I thought. I've had to take some of the liquid out because the apples produce quite a lot of liquid. So this is the first stage of it when it's been in the oven for a lot longer than I thought, actually about 40 minutes. And the apples and sweet potatoes are, you know, they're beginning to get fairly soft, but they're not quite ready yet. So I've had this covered in foil, and I'm going to start at the beginning, but I just thought I'd show you this stage. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just top it with our old friends, some breadcrumbs and some cheese. So I use the Trader Joe's panko, which is fantastic. But if anybody's gluten-free, they do a great gluten-free version. And because I'm the kind of person that just opens the fridge and sees what's in there, today we're using some Parmesan, but it did occur to me that maybe even a little blue cheese would be lovely on this. But anyway, so we're just going to finish off the gratin part of it. Put a little bit more breadcrumbs in here. And then I'm going to throw that back in a very hot oven, 400 degrees. And what I discovered, because I put a little bit too much liquid in the first time around, it was slightly bubbling over. So my new instructions is to put it on a sheet pan. And what I love doing with the sheet pans is lining them with parchment paper, because I hate washing up. I'm really, really bad at cleaning up. So that's all things to just make life a little bit easier. So that's going back in, and hopefully by the end of this, it will look ready. So we're just going to start off at the very beginning. This is a recipe that there's about 3 or 4 ingredients. Really, you don't need any specialized equipment, but I have a couple of things that I use that I absolutely love. And I'm going to make this, and this is like I think the recipe that I've got online that I'm going to share with you guys, it probably makes double this amount. But since I'm making double the amount anyway, I thought I'd half it to show. So this is a kind of little dish that probably serves 2 to 3 people. This is a great dish for reheating. In fact, like most of these things, you know, I would almost suggest making it ahead of time and then reheating it. It slices quite well. And you could just heat it back up as you need it. So the first thing we're going to do with the dish is we're going to take a little bit of butter, and we're just going to grease that. You know, or cooking spray or olive oil or whatever it is, but I happen to have lots of sticks of butter lying around, so it was good to use that. So we're going to put that to one side. And then it almost feels like a cheat, guys. It really is just sweet potato and apple. And I was actually checking the recipe because I thought, why don't I have onions or leeks or something? So again, like all good recipes, adapt this to whatever you want to do. This works really well. Sweet potato, I've taken out the kind of like the more horrible bits, but honestly, you don't really need to peel it. Same with the apples, they can go straight in. So sort of recipe I love, but there's really very little in the way of prep. And like I say, you can do this with a sharp knife. Where's my sharp knife gone? Oh, managed to lose it. So you can just take the apples and just slice them thinly like this. And for the apples, I happen to have Granny Smith's here, but I also For this one, I've mixed it up. I've also put in some red apples I got because I've been doing the community share, the agricultural share thing this season, and have a lot of apples and pears lying around. So I'm just slicing those. But what I was saying is one of my favorite things to have is, and I think I've showed this to you guys before, is a mandolin. I don't know if you've used these. Now, the only thing with this is they're a little bit dangerous. So when I'm doing afternoon teas at the DCA, no one is allowed to slice the cucumbers apart from me, because although I have insurance through Wanda's husband, I prefer not to use it. So you have to be careful. There's things like this that you can use that kind of help. So it's easy. This is the fastest way to do this. Once you've got a mandolin, you find all sorts of uses for it. And I presume if you had what's the word? Everyone's on mute. Help me. The
Cuisinart.
Cuisinart, yes, thank you. I don't have one because, like I say, I really, really hate washing up. So I'd rather stand and cut things by hand. And I find, but I presume they have a lid that you could do this to. So I'm just going to do, but you can see this is fairly quick. This is on the second sitting. So they're coming out to nice, really, really thin slices. So we just take our sweet potato, we take our apple, we get our dish, and we begin layering. So really just a layer of sweet potato. And then once we've done that, you can do a little bit of, it's clever, I did some earlier, a little bit of salt and pepper, but not, I don't think you have to do every layer with salt and pepper, but just remember to do one of them. And then anything that's got cream in it, which is the final ingredient, seems to benefit from a little nutmeg. And this is one of my favorite things in the world. So if you don't, you can live without the mandolin, but I would seriously recommend getting one of these. This is the sort of thing that every time I use it, it just makes me happy. So it's just a little microplaner, a little bit of nutmeg, makes me feel like a grown-up. And then we're going to put a layer of apples over. And if they're a little bit brown, it's not the end of the world, as long as they're not too desperate. My dog's coming to see because he likes apples. So we're just going to keep layering that sweet potato. And honestly, you just keep going for as long as you want to. So this turned out to be, like, I had a really, really big sweet potato. So it was like maybe half of that and a little bit of a smaller one. And I think it's like 2.5 apples I've used for this particular size. So just keep going with that. And I say I've got some red apples. And I just keep going till I kind of lose interest, to be perfectly honest, or you get to the top of the dish, or you run out of time, or whatever it is. So just keep, there's no exact way of doing this. A bit more nutmeg, because we like nutmeg. A bit of salt and pepper. I should have thought of a second recipe, Felicia, because this is a very short recipe. There we are. And then I would finish off with one last layer of sweet potato. So super easy. And when this cooks, it will actually, become less in volume. The apples will soften and everything will actually shrink back in slightly, so we can fill this quite full just now. And then the cream. So as I said earlier, I made one and I discovered I was a little confused because I used almost all of this. And I was looking at my recipe and thought, actually, that's too much cream for the amount of sweet potato and apples that I've used. But I've taken half of that cream back out again, because once the apples started releasing liquid, I ended up actually with too much cream. So I'm back to my original thought that this amount really only needs about a cup of cream. And if you feel that that's too rich, I haven't done it, but I'm sure you could use like half cream, half milk, or half and half. I think I just tried it with cream and it was so good that I felt. So what this is doing is coming sort of kind of halfway up the dish. So it's not completely covering it, but we are going to get a piece of foil. And I should have said the oven is 400, so it's very, it's a good hot oven. And then you put that in for about 40 minutes, 40, 50 minutes, and set your timer, and then just start prodding it after a while. So let's put that one in. I'm gonna have to wait another 5 minutes for that other one to be ready. So that was it, guys. Really straightforward. Any questions?